Soccer Talk, and I'm joined by my colleague and co-host Kartik Chris. Kartik, how are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, Chris. Thank you.
So in the hundreds, if not thousands, of podcast interviews that you've done, Kartik, have you ever done one about football shirts, about your collection?
No.
Hey, there's something new. So there's something
very, very unique.
And just as we did the book review, we talked about football books last week. I had no idea what was in your book library and vice versa. And the same goes for the football shirts too. So this is going to be interesting for me to kind of get a glimpse into some of the football shirts that you own and see if there's any surprises, and vice versa, some of my stuff too. And I think it'll be a pretty varied selection of football shirts from around the world. So I'll have you kick it off if you don't mind, and to share your shirts.
Yeah. So first off, I'm wearing a shirt, Fort Lauderdale Strikers training shirt, but the sponsor is Holy Cross Hospital. I want to pay special tribute to them today. Our friend, our colleague, Neil Blackman, really good friend of mine, got struck with COVID-19. It was about a 3-week process with him. He was in the hospital for a week at Holy Cross. They did a fantastic job caring for him, and he's recovered now. He's recovering now, I should say. He's not recovered. But Neil, of course, is the proprietor and editor of Yanks Are Coming, editor-in-chief of Yanks Are Coming, theyanksarecoming.com, and writes for The Athletic and a number of other sources through the years. So the hospital is taking good care of one of our fellow soccer journalists here in the U.S., so I wanted to pay tribute to them with this training kit. In terms of kits, let's start with this probably or quite possibly my favorite Manchester City kit, which is a Le Coq Sportif kit from the 2007-2008 season. What's so unique about this kit is, one, the crest is centered.
Yeah.
Instead of being here or here. And you have pinstripes.
Which is very uncommon for Manchester City, pinstripes, right?
Very uncommon for Manchester City. And there was kind of a pinstripe fad going on at the time. The U.S. men's national team, and I should preface this entire discussion saying that my kit collection is here in my house, except for my U.S. men's national team shirts, which seem to be at my parents' house for whatever reason. That also probably indicates I haven't worn them for a really long time. But there was a kit that same summer in the Copa America in 2007, which I'm sure you remember, Chris, which was the only time the U.S. men's national team wore pinstripes, which was a faded light blue kit, not quite this light, not quite the sky blue, but kind of light blue with pinstripes, a Nike kit. And this is probably my favorite City kit, and it's from the 07-08 season when Sven-Göran Eriksson led City to a top half finish and qualified for Europe.
Yeah, and I have to think too about Le Coq Sportif. If I have some of those, I have to check a little bit later in my collection and see if I have some of those laying around. But so Kartik, what's up next in your collection?
So let's go to a non-Manchester City. Actually, this would be an England kit, a newer England kit, Nike kit, which well, why can't I get the, okay, there we go. England with the 1 star. The 1 star remains, right? It's remained there for a long time. And it's a Wayne Rooney kit, who Rooney, arguably my favorite English player of recent years. I know he's a United player, but he started as an Everton player. He finished as an Everton player, at least in the Premier League, right? He went to MLS after that, and now it's with Derby. But I like I'm not always a huge fan of Nike, but I really like what Nike has done with the France kits since France switched to them, and with the England kits since England switched to them. I know there's a lot of opining for the traditionalism of Admiral or of Umbro, who immediately preceded Nike in having the England contract. But I think Nike has actually done a very good job with the England kits. They have been less experimental with the England kits than they have been with the kits from the U.S. and from some other countries. Portugal, they've done some experimentation with. Now, England has gotten some of those Nike templates, those infamous Nike templates, and I think I might have. No, I don't have a Manchester City shirt here, which followed that same template before City switched to Puma. But I think they've done a fairly good job with England. I'm going to go ahead now and show another kit, and this is one of my favorites, designed by our good friend Derek Reese. here in South Florida, who's done a lot of work, graphic work from World Soccer Talk, was the president of the Flight 19 Supporters Club, is the president of the Flight 19 Supporters Club, worked for the NASL, worked for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, and is also the president of him or she FC. Derek designed this very, very nice, meaningful kit, which has peninsular Florida. Let me see if I can get this in the camera. You have the entire peninsula of Florida, front and back, and city locations with Fort Lauderdale in bold and a star indicating you are here. Now, the symbolism of this was we have an MLS team which calls itself Miami. It's the second time we've had an MLS team that calls itself Miami that plays in Fort Lauderdale. So now, look, I think that there's outside of this area, people generally refer, and I've even worked on political campaigns, et cetera, where people have referred to this region as Miami. They don't refer to it as necessarily as South Florida. But there's a lot of pride around Fort Lauderdale, so that's and there was a lot of controversy about Lockhart Stadium, the traditional home of the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, being turned over to the Miami MLS team. One little design feature here is the Florida flag. Or two design features, actually, I want to highlight. The Florida flag is in the bottom of each number. That's where you sometimes see a team logo or a league crest, right? In those numbers. So that's a really cool design feature. And then here's another cool design feature, which is the flag. Let me see if I can get in there, of the city of Fort Lauderdale with the sailboat, the famous sailboat and sun flag of Fort Lauderdale. So
pretty cool.
Anyway, Chris, on to you.
Yeah. So let me just go through a few of mine in no order of priority by any means.
Yeah, I should just same thing with mine. They were in no priority order. Other than that,
some of my favorite shirts or most interesting shirts. This one, Kartik, which is New York Cosmos for Umbro, and to me, this was really kind of a statement of intent from the New York Cosmos. Going with Umbro, which is traditionally, to me at least, one of the better shirt designers. A company that is steeped in history, always typically usually does a really high quality product. And with Major League Soccer having a relationship and partnership with Adidas for many years, this was the Cosmos saying, hey, we're going to go for the quality rather than the quantity. I've worn it on many occasions. The only thing I don't like is when you wear it, the actual collar is a little bit tight. But as far as design, it's a beautiful shirt. It really is. Do you have this one, Kartik?
I do not. And actually, I wanted to get. I have a couple of Cosmos shirts. I don't have any T-shirts. I don't have a Cosmos kit. If I got a Cosmos kit, I'd actually want to get a green one.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Next up is Schalke.
Oh, no, we didn't coordinate, did we? So I might as well do it at the same time.
So this is one that both Kartik and I, we visited Schalke a few years ago. And it's a really nice shirt. I mean, nice design, look closely in terms of just the fabric. It's a quality design. Of course, it's Adidas. This one I like a lot. It's like a really beautiful.
Same.
Yeah, same number too.
And they have the cool design feature, right, of the Schalke crest being in.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so that one I like. This one I like for the design of it, which was 2006. Oh no, 2006. 2006 World Cup. Again, Umbro, an England shirt, and oftentimes I get people asking me like, "Why, Chris, do you follow or kind of support England in some ways?" Well, my dad's English, my mum's Welsh. I was born in Wales, but my dad lived and still is English. I mean, lives in the United States, but so I've always kind of felt split between the two, which is not very common to have that, where you have people support England and Wales, but for me, I do. Let me show you one more before I hand it back over to you, Kartik. This is one I've had for many years, and I used to wear it a lot. This is a Swansea City away shirt.
That's like Coke Sportif also.
Yeah, Le Coq Sportif, yeah. And this would have been probably from probably early 1990s. And every time I wore this is back in the time where, before the 1994 World Cup and before soccer was kind of really as more popular in this country. But people thought it was, if you were a soccer fan, they thought it was an AC Milan shirt. And if people weren't soccer fans, they thought, like, do you work for Gulf Oil? Like, why do you walk around wearing a Gulf Oil shirt? I'm like, no, it's a soccer shirt. That's the sponsor. And at the time, I guess in the early 1990s, for a lot of American sports, if they'd see somebody with a logo across the front of the shirt, if it's baseball, usually you would say like what, Red Sox, or if it's NFL shirts, they wouldn't have the sponsor name across the front. So they thought I was working for Gulf Oil. But it's actually, I think, a classic shirt and something that you don't see too often for the Swansea City. And of course, I'm a Swansea City supporter. Right, Kartik, you're up next.
Yeah, I've got obviously a couple of Liga MX shirts also that I realize are at my parents' house and probably should have gotten the last time I was over there. Haven't been over there very much in this coronavirus pandemic. Let me show this one now, which is a circa mid-1980s Manchester City with Saab as the sponsor, and it's it's an interesting kit because it was an era in Manchester City history where the club went from great heights, which were the 1970s. Manchester City was consistently one of the better clubs in England, even though they didn't win a league title in that decade, but were a point out of a league title on 2 different occasions. Won 3 different cup competitions that decade. It went from that and then got to the FA Cup final in 1981. There was a replay, lost to Spurs of the famous Ricky Villa goal, and were relegated within 2 years, and it was up and down for the next 2 decades basically after that. And this kid just is very, I think. You think of Paul Power and Dave Bennett and some of the players of that era. Joe Corrigan wore this, or wore the keeper version of this toward the end of his career. It's got a real depressing feel when you discuss it with City fans, with other City fans, because that's just the era of City Football Club. And I think even though the bottom fell out in the 90s, the feeling is the 1980s were the decade where it happened. Where it all happened, because the club had left the 70s really well positioned, or toward the end of the 70s, Malcolm Allison had come back to the club. They had spent a lot of money on players. Trevor Francis was the most expensive transfer in the history of English football at the time, and he had been signed, among other record-breaking transfers. They were heady times, and the bottom fell out. So this kid is essentially associated with failure, and it's not something that City fans...
Don't put it away yet, though, Kartik. I mean, so it's what, 1984?
Yeah, this is 84, 85. This is after relegation. City popped back up, got actually to a Wembley final in 86. I don't know if people watching remember the Full Members Cup, which was the cup started by the FA after Heysel and English clubs were thrown out of Europe. So it was an additional cup competition. And Manchester City got to the final wearing this kit against Chelsea and got beat 5-4. If you want to talk about fixture congestion, because everyone complains about that now, Manchester City had a first division game less than 24 hours before they had to go to Wembley and play in this cup final. So it was a heavily rotated squad. I think Chelsea had a similar situation. And so there was a 5-4 game. It was an open game. But this was a kit that a lot of City fans... Now there's more nostalgia for it, but for a while it was associated with failure. You didn't wear this kit. You didn't wear the Brother kit from the 1990s. Brother is a company based in Manchester because they were reminiscent of bad times. Now, because a lot of City fans want to distinguish themselves from people who became supporters after the takeover, you see these kits reappearing.
Two things on this, Kartik, and this is one. There's no shirt manufacturer logo on the front of the shirt. So is it on the back of the collar, or is it like on the tag? I mean,
I think it might have been a reprint. Yeah, it looks like it's an official retro. Is what it says. Score draw. So it's an official retro. Here's the tag. Okay. but it's got the general kit feels. Now, at the time, City, like a lot of other clubs in England, didn't necessarily display the manufacturer. They went from Admiral to Le Coq Sportif, came in a couple times, as we've seen already, and Umbro at times. But generally, this wasn't necessarily played up as much as it is now.
It's a classic shirt, though. The design's beautiful. Yeah. But the other thing about it too, with the sponsor logo, Saab, it's interesting too. Like just yesterday, I found out that Phil Shane, the commentator for beIN Sports, is a Saab collector or an admirer of Saab cars. So next time we see him, he should wear that shirt. But we should also ask him about his interest in Saab cars, which they are classic design cars, Swedish cars. I mean, well before kind of the Volvos of the day in terms of just really, really good brand. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of mine real fast. These are kind of at random here. Who would think that I would have a São Paulo FC shirt? I'm not sure even where I got that one from, but nice design. This one to me is one of the most beautiful design shirts I own, which is the Barcelona shirt. I mean, just the design of it. I mean, and I'm not a Nike fan by any means, but just the look and feel of it. I mean, the two halves, the Blaugrana, of course, the UNICEF logo, which says a lot. Just a really beautiful design shirt. This one's one of my favorites, and it's the England shirt. This would have been 2010. Again from Umbro, but it's a very, very. I mean, the fabric. It's long sleeve. The fabric is like almost like very, almost like a cloth, or actually more almost like a silky cloth. Just a beautiful design shirt. And let me show you one more before I go back to you, Kartik. And this one, for me, so many different memories here. Major League Soccer, Miami Fusion shirts. This is the shirt I proposed to my wife. I was wearing it at Lockhart halftime of a game back.
And the tag has got an official MLS logo. Does the what is there an MLS patch on the side or on the back? I don't remember MLS. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah. So that's the original MLS logo, because I don't know if a lot of people noticed that there was a evolution from that MLS logo to a logo that looked similar but wasn't the same until there are subtle differences between that and the logo that was used from like 7 to 14.
Yeah, and that one just like a lot of great memories for me. I mean, really kind of supporting Miami Fusion as a season ticket holder and going to all the games and just hanging out with my friends and family. Good times. All right, back to you, Kartik.
So the Nike kit from the 2012 Euros for England is very similar in its cloth and feel to the Umbro kit. It's a little simpler than that 10, but the actual fabric is the same.
Yeah.
As they used in 10, and this is I think an official. This is the 14 World Cup. Yeah, this is authentic, right? So this isn't a replica. I've got the number stamp on here, which is quite cool. But
that's the thing, though, too, Kartik, is so much of how soccer fans view football shirts are. It's a lot of it is kind of what they remember, what the memories are of that shirt. So that to me is one of the better England shirt designs I've seen in the last probably decade. But that World Cup, in terms of the 2014, was
the worst tournament for England, right? They were arguably the worst team in the entire World Cup.
Right, exactly, and crashed out. But the kit itself, the actual shirt itself, was beautifully designed. It's that one. I think I have one of those too. I just love
I love the design, and it's an authentic one. So I don't wear it very often. I have a red of the same. I think the red I have is from the Euro 2012, which is also authentic. With these Nike shirts, just a little pro tip here: you either get a number that says authentic on the bottom right. It's numbered, individually numbered, or you get a. I don't think I got that into the camera here. Sorry. It's right in this area. Or it says replica. So make sure someone who is selling you a replica doesn't claim it's an authentic and try and rip you off. There's a very easy way to discern those on that kind of era of Nike kits.
Cool.
Which they had not done. Most of my U.S. kits, which are Nike kits, are between the '98 World Cup and the 2007 Copa America. They didn't do that on those kits. They didn't discern it that way. They may now on the U.S. kits. I'm not sure. Should I go with a couple more, or are you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's look at two different Fort Lauderdale Strikers kits. One is a Joma kit. This was our best outfitter of the NASL era Strikers. A couple design features on here are the ligature, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers ligature, and the Joma crest, which indicates the authenticity here. So this was a great kit. The stripes, if you'll notice, are a little wider and larger than the traditional Strikers kit, which were narrower, the old Adidas kits from the original NASL. This is my favorite kit to wear. It's my favorite outfit kit that the Strikers had during the NASL period. This, however, is my favorite kit in its look, just because it says Fort Lauderdale. It's a Nike kit. But Nike stuff was quite frankly, the stuff we got from Nike was garbage. Okay, so I mean, the comparison in actual quality of these two shirts, there is no comparison. This is a quality shirt. This is not.
Would you say quality in design or quality in material or
quality in material? This is the like I'm saying. I like this shirt, the design. Yeah. I like wearing this shirt. It says Fort Lauderdale on it. I like things with the city or locale name if possible. But the Nike Dry Fit technology, which is what this is, and these were kits we wore in games that season in 2015. It didn't feel right to me compared to the Joma stuff. It just didn't. It wasn't as comfortable to wear. So those are those two. And let me show a Boca Raton FC kit before we're done with this. And by the way, Derek Reese, who I mentioned earlier, as the designer of him or she kits and worked for the Strikers and worked for the NASL, he had designed a lot of cool kit designs for the Strikers that Nike, in their very kind of template ways, were not able to follow through on. And I think if the Strikers had survived, we had switched to an Aria for the final season. And Aria was much more open to that sort of thing. And Aria is a Canadian kit manufacturer, and they actually do really good work. And the Cosmos changed from an Aria Cosmos had obviously Umbro originally, but then switched to Under Armour, which had a partnership with the NASL. But since leaving the NASL, or since the NASL collapsed, they have switched to an Aria, and they're, I'm told, very happy with what they're getting from them. So this is Boca Raton FC, local club here, South Florida. This is the same. So I want to say something here about Nike templates. Mm-hmm. This is the same exact shirt I just showed you from the Strikers.
Yeah.
So these shirts were delivered to the Strikers. There was a surplus. The surplus was given to Boca Raton FC when they started, because they're a local club. There was a lot of kinship between the two clubs. And it is an authentic shirt. You get the authentic thing, like I showed on the England kit. However, this was designed for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, and so basically what happened is Fort Lauderdale was stripped off the kit, and you put the sponsor here. But Nike eventually, when Boca wanted a custom kit design, had to go to Admiral to do it. And the stuff I have from Admiral, the Boca Raton FC stuff I have from Admiral, I don't have a kit, but I have a book bag. I have a number of polo shirts. I have a number of other things, really top quality. I was always impressed with Admiral. They maybe got a bad name because of Don Revie's association with them, post Leeds and then pushing them on England. But they've done some fantastic work here, at least in the States, from my experience. And really I enjoyed dealing with them too, in terms of not only Boca, but NASL. We had them take care of a number of our clubs. Oh, and before I move on from that subject and throw it back to you, speaking of Admiral, this is a great Admiral kit. Speaking of NASL, the Rowdies, classic kit. So what Admiral was able to do, and this is another contrast with Nike, this is the Rowdies wore the Admiral kits until 2011 to 2014 in the NASL, or 2012 to 2014. I think they had Lotto the first year. Lotto's stuff wasn't very good. Looks like a classic Rowdies kit from the 70s.
Yeah.
Now, I do not have a Nike kit. that the Rowdies have won since 2015. I don't like them. I think that they've absolutely destroyed kind of the traditional feel of the Rowdies kits. Now, there's some Rowdies fans out there, who I'm sure you're watching are going to disagree with me about that. But this, to me, was a company that custom makes kits, that has its own traditional feel because they were the preeminent kit designer in the 70s in England, understanding the legacy and history of the NASL from the 70s and imparting it in a kit in 2012, 2013 here in Florida. Nike has not done that with the Rowdies, in my opinion. I don't like the Nike stuff at all for the Rowdies, and they've been with them now for 5 years.
Yeah. All right. Next up, I got a Swansea City shirt, which is the centenary shirt. And this would be,
I remember that. I can see Julian de Guzman in that one.
Yep. And Michu scoring. We beat QPR. Was it 5-1 at Loftus Road on the opening day? I think of that season. Wearing this shirt. So yeah, really, really classic designer. The red and green, which is red Swansea wear, but representing Wales also. This is a replica of a shirt. Actually,
Adidas, yeah.
My first Swansea City shirt. So this would have been about 1980, just a really classic design. This would have been the shirt that I really kind of grew up on.
That would have been the shirt when Toshak was managing, right? And got Swansea up to the first division.
Exactly. And it would have been, really kind of, from my childhood, that's the shirt I would have been wearing almost every day. Classic shirt, but not the original shirt, but I did get a kind of a retro version of it. And then just a few more for me. Again, this is, for me, near and dear to my heart, Swansea City's first shirt that they wore in the Premier League.
Yep.
The design of it, not really a big fan, but as far as the memories, talking about that England 2014 kind of shirt, great shirt, bad memories. This was not the greatest shirt, but fantastic memories. This one I love. I mean, I'm not a Nike fan, but this design I really, really love. As far as kind of just the gradient, really, really, nice.
That's 2015, right? US 2015, 2016. No, 16. I think the crest had changed, so that might be 15.
15, yeah. And actually, I think it might be, Women's World Cup.
Oh, it's Women's World Cup 15, yeah.
Yeah, 15. And last but not least, one more for me. And this is a shirt picked up in September, a Swansea City away shirt, which was celebrating, I think, 100 years of the club.
So that's Joma. And yes, again, or Homa. Homa is how it's properly pronounced, the Spanish pronunciation. How have you felt wearing that shirt? Because again, my experience with the strikers was that our Homa stuff was of much better quality than our Nike stuff.
No complaints at all. I mean, it's the fabric, the material feels comfortable. It's stays intact. It doesn't get ruined in the wash or anything like that. But no, 2 thumbs up from me for Joma. Yeah.
So the story with us leaving Homa was based around our decision to bring Ronaldo in to the ownership group and Ronaldo's affiliation with Nike. I thought it was, in hindsight, just a horrible decision because we had a shirt company. We'd moved away from them for a year for a cheer biz, but we were going back to Homa the beginning of 2015, and they had produced not only quality stuff, but surplus of stuff. So you had stuff to sell. You had additional training kits. You didn't have to reuse the kits. I mean, that was another thing. I mean, with Homa, we were able to give each striker player a kit for each game, right? Once we went to Nike, it was, okay, you get this for the month, then, we have to rewash it and recirculate it. So I have a lot of fondness for Homa and actually dealt with them at the NASL level. When I was at the NASL, they were our official outfitter, even though each team could negotiate individual deals, and we had actually negotiated an admiral deal for Minnesota. After I left, the league switched to Under Armour, and I think that was more about prestige than anything else. And I guess Under Armour stuff is okay, but I really like Homa stuff.
All right, Kartik, you're up next. What you got?
Okay, so let's do a couple of Manchester City kits here. So this one is a Nike kit. Not particularly fond of it, but I thought I would show it because of this. I'm not fond of. There's very little that Nike did with Man City that I'm fond of. Actually, I think maybe the best kit they did was the last one. But this is a Frank Lampard kit. Very, very, very interesting because there was a run on Lampard merchandise at the time, and including me, because it was. Look, this is a guy we admired from another club, and it was cool. Even though we had become a club that by that time had won 2 titles, it became really cool to have Frank Lampard on Manchester City, even if just for a season. Right. So I went out and bought a Lampard kit. This is a late Kevin Keegan era Reebok Thomas Cook. This is prior to the other one I showed, the late Coke Sportif kit. This is the kit that Sean Wright Phillips wore and Joey Barton, young Stephen Ireland, number of players of that era you can see in this kit. This was a kit that was very comfortable to wear, really kind of aerodynamic. I still wear it from time to time. I kind of miss Reebok stuff. I thought that they and this would have been manufactured in Bolton, which is 10 miles from Manchester. So it was a local thing also. And obviously Reebok had a long association with Bolton Wanderers, the local club there. And City used them from time to time because they were a local company. Once they were bought by Adidas, it became like any other brand, and we moved away from them.
It's amazing how big Reebok was in the 1980s. Because and
it was a trendy thing, right? The Reebok shoes with the Union Jack on it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Now, if you mention Reeboks to probably just I don't know, kids or teens, I mean, they may not even know who a Reebok is.
So this is a reprint of a shirt from 1970, which Manchester City won both the League Cup and the European Cup Winners' Cup in. For those of you who are young and don't remember the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, it was a big competition, and it was merged into the UEFA Cup. What was the reasoning for that? Were they trying to give the UEFA Cup an extra boost? Because I think the Cup Winners' Cup had a real value to it. In the 70s and 80s. And then in the late 90s, they merged the 2 competitions together, now known as the Europa League. But this was the shirt which City to date, their only European trophy was the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. Mike Summerby, Colin Bell, among others on that team. The great Neil Young, who passed away a few years ago. I saw a reference to him the other day on Twitter, so I'm thinking of him. This club managed by Joe Mercer, by the way, not managed by Malcolm Allison. He was the number 2, even though for some reason history seems to believe Malcolm Allison was the manager of Manchester City in all the best times. I
was going back through just a little bit of history a couple of days ago, looking at some old videos, and I think that they were talking about Aberdeen and how Aberdeen beat Real Madrid in the European Cup Winners' Cup.
Cup Winners' Cup, yeah.
Yeah, which imagine that today. I mean, Aberdeen. A much smaller club, but of course, Sir Alex Ferguson, when he was for Manchester United, coaching there.
So significantly, I should mention, City wins the Cup Winners' Cup in 70. In 71, they're back in the Cup Winners' Cup because they had won the League Cup in 1970 as well. And they got all the way to the semifinals and lost in a 2-leg in the 2-leg semifinals. Everything was 2 legs. To Chelsea. Chelsea then wins their first European trophy, winning the final against Real Madrid. And the rest is kind of history because Chelsea has now collected European trophies. They won the Cup Winners' Cup a couple more times. I think after that, they won obviously they've won the Champions League now. I want to say they won the UEFA Cup. But City was very close to winning back-to-back Cup Winners' Cups. And who knows? I mean, and then I think I mentioned on our last video show, the next season, City has a 7-point lead. They buy Rodney Marsh, who is the best player in England in the first division at that time from QPR. There wasn't really a transfer window in those days, but as like the deadline, the last day of the deadline in March, you could sell up to March. I remember when Duncan Ferguson got sold. Prominent. This is my greatest memory of not having a transfer window was when Duncan Ferguson was sold by Everton to Newcastle, and all of the Everton supporters were in the streets whining and crying. And I remember I was an American sports fan still at the time. This is 1998, thinking, why did they let guys go so late in the season to another club? Why is that possible in English football? And then it turns out, I think a year or two later, they imposed this transfer window, which ends January 31st. But at the time, you could sell players up until March. And I remember when Duncan Ferguson was sold. And I think everybody who's watching this probably now knows, especially after this run of when he was the interim manager, the relationship Everton supporters have with that particular player. So it was traumatic for them. Now, he ended up coming back to Everton 2 years later because, like so many guys, he went to Newcastle and flopped. And that's maybe another story for another podcast someday. How come so many good players who were good everywhere else go to Newcastle and Sunderland and flop? And then they go somewhere else after and they're great. Damien Duff is another really good
Kartik, so far you've shown some shirts from NASL, from the first division in England, from the Premier League. What's next?
I'm looking for, here's the Tampa Bay Mutiny shirt from a Nike Tampa Bay Mutiny shirt from NASL, from MLS, excuse me, early days of MLS. I cannot, for some reason, find my.
How did you end up with it?
This is a Nike. This is a Nike shirt. It doesn't have the MLS logo that yours did. Your Fusion one. For some reason, I have that same Fusion shirt, and I don't know where it is. But this is.
How did you end up with the Mutiny shirt?
I was a Mutiny fan before the Fusion existed.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
96 and 97. But I part of that time I was in Washington, D.C., and there was a big rivalry between D.C. United and the Mutiny that had started. Those were the top two teams the first 2 years. And Thomas Rongen was the manager of the Mutiny. Farouk Karashi, who I love to death, didn't know at the time, but love him to death, and his son George, he was the general manager. So to be a contrarian also and to have some Florida pride, I got into the Mutiny to get in people's faces there. But of course, in '98, I became a Fusion fan.
So you drove from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa to go to a bunch of the games also, or?
Yeah, I mean, I went to games. I don't think I went to that many games. I mean, I went to a game in D.C. when I was there between the Mutiny and D.C. United, and I went to a game at Tampa Stadium, I think, again against D.C. For sure. Oh, no, I drove to Tampa for another game, too, which was late in the 97 season. Thomas was already gone by that time. He was coaching New England. But Stevie Ralston had a great game. I want to say they played Colorado with their old green kits. That was another great kick. The Kappa kits, the early MLS Kappa kits for the Colorado Rapids are some of my favorite kits. And actually, that motivates me to try and maybe find one on eBay.
I mean, that shirt that you just showed, I mean, to me, that reminds me of LP Bay, just colors.
Yeah, that was the Valderrama shirt, right.
Yeah.
And the colors, I don't think had any rhyme or reason and green was another color they incorporated. Oh, this did have the MLS. Sorry, it does have the MLS. I was looking on the wrong sleeve.
The Mutiny logo on the front, though, I mean, just the name in that futuristic font. I mean, that's
horrible.
I love it.
I mean, it's so 90s. This is like a video game, right? Type thing.
Yeah, but even the crest, I mean, with the mutant.
This name was it was the bat. The legend of the bat is that there were bats in the concourse, allegedly under the stands, the bleachers at Tampa Stadium, the old Tampa Stadium, the Sombrero, which is now a parking lot for Raymond James. But that is why the bat appeared there. I'll just finish up with Florida MLS with, this is the England kit. Sorry, I thought there was an Orlando City kit. My fault. With this is obviously Orlando City's MLS kit, Adidas kit. There are some cool design features on here. And then I know there's another one. Oh, yeah, Forever Our City. And this is year one Orlando City 2015. I think this is really cool. Let me see if I can get that. If you can see that. So Adidas doesn't customize a lot for MLS clubs. They've done a little better in recent years, but Orlando City in year one in MLS, after having had Lotto in USL, they did a lot of nice things for. So that's kind of I have a couple of other MLS kits. I'm going to show actually one in a few minutes. I have a Real Salt Lake one I'm not showing, and I have an LA Galaxy one, which I think that might be at my parents' house too. You can just Google me. You'll find a picture of me wearing that. I think that picture is. I was with you, Chris, when that picture was taken. I think you took the picture.
Oh yeah, Beckham. I mean, well,
with the Galaxy playing AC Milan. Oh no, not AC Milan. Who did they play? Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah.
Chelsea, yeah, in the first game.
So what about some of the more of the Major League Soccer shirts, like the Red Bulls or?
Yeah, so this I want to thank our friend Daniel Feuerstein. This is a Red Bull shirt from 2016, game worn.
Game worn shirts. Wow.
By
Sean Wright Phillips.
Yep. The someone who is and our friend Rami Sofi has sent me a thing for his website about Manchester City fans, and I'm actually about my fandom of Manchester City. I'm actually writing the filling it out today, and it is who's your favorite Manchester City player of all time? So I've got him number one. I've got Sean Goder number two, and I'm debating between Paul Dickov number three or contemporary player, guy by the name of Fernandinho, who's pretty darn good. For those Brazilians out there, I mean, this just so bothers me. This is what really bothers me about international football, Chris. If I could get on my high horse for a minute, there are so many Brazilians who tell me they think Fernandinho is a bad player because that 7-1 game,
really,
or some other national team game, and I come on. They obviously don't watch the Premier League, do they?
Yeah. I guess they have to blame. There has to be some mistake.
They have to blame someone, right? And he's the easiest to blame because he's the holding midfielder, right? So, look, he's one of the great players in Manchester City's history.
Men against boys. No boys.
This is a guy that wanted to join Manchester City so much, and I think everybody knows the story. Follows the Premier League. He paid part of his own transfer fee, right?
Forgot about that.
So, and the rest is history. One of the great players in the history of the club. So,
one more. Yeah, do you have any more? One last one.
I have a few more here. I think I've shown.
I got one before we go.
Oh yeah. So obviously, this is a Borussia Dortmund kit in the interest of fair play and equal time. Since we did the Schalke one, this is Puma. We talked about Puma versus Adidas on the last few World Soccer Talk podcasts. That rivalry is personified by Dortmund, who is so now closely associated with the Puma brand, and Bayern, who are so closely associated with the Adidas brand. Maybe the two most prominent club teams that wear either of those shirts. And their rivalry is the biggest rivalry in German football, or cross-sectional rivalry in German football. And the brothers' rivalry continues, I think, because and it's obvious, like anytime you go into any Puma retailer, there's a lot of pride in Puma's relationship and association with Borussia Dortmund. They have a similar relationship with Italy, but obviously being a German company, this is their anchor. And you see the same thing with Adidas, even though Adidas has outfitted Chelsea until recently and a number of other Premier League clubs, AC Milan at one point, a number of clubs around the world, their pride and joy is Bayern Munich.
So what I would say, Kartik, just in closing, that the thing that surprised me the most about your collection is how many Major League Soccer shirts you have. That was really...
How many? Oh, wow. Yeah. I thought I didn't have that many.
What about that Miami FC one, that orange? I see some orange and blue there.
Oh, yeah. So this is Miami FC. This is actually the last shirt on the rack that we haven't looked at. So this is the owner, Ricardo Silva's favorite shirt. I have some other Miami FC shirts that I like as well, but this is the one that he prefers, and so that this is always the primary kit because of that. There's a collar. It's Macron, which is an Italian brand. There is this really kind of cool color contrast here, I think, between the orange and the aqua or teal, whatever you want to call that. It's got a very Florida feel to it.
It reminds me of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it's the same colors. Or you could think that this is like University of Miami / Florida Gator colors, because there's some darker blue here, which is the Gator color. That orange, that bright orange like that, is a very kind of University of Miami color, but very Florida shirt. Now, the thing that I think we found is that this is a very Florida color, but that the Inter Miami color, which was also worn by Miami United, is a more Miami, like modern Miami color, right? This is maybe a more traditional Florida color.
Yeah.
And they're completely different, right? That's pink and black. That's the same thing Miami United wore. in NPSL for many years, continues to wear, and now Inter Miami is wearing it in MLS. This is a traditional, like you said, Miami Dolphins, Miami Hurricanes, Florida Marlins. This was the Florida Marlins color too when they started until Jeffrey Luria changed the colors. Now their colors are more like the Inter colors, right? So this, I would say, is a very like 1970s, 1980s Florida color. Florida Gators, Florida Marlins, Miami Dolphins, and then
the black and pink. To me, I kind of think of Miami Vice.
Miami Vice, and I think that's what changed it. And even the Miami Heat have gone in that direction. They had a very red and black color, and now they're wearing a lot of pink and those kind of floral tones in it. So that's the bulk of my collection. Let me see if there's anything I missed. Yeah, I showed the Wayne Rooney kit. I guess that's everything.
All right. Well, thank you, Kartik, for sharing your collection, and thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been kind of a little bit different, something we usually don't do, but hopefully you got some enjoyment out of it. And thank you again for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. And Kartik, what should they do?
Enjoy your football.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.